Hey, Try Life on Family, welcome back to another episode. This is Maurice. Inevitably, whenever I talk to you guys or people that reach out to me and we get into a conversation about trying life on and the lifestyle design journey, the phrase leaning into your authentic self always comes along at some point. That is the thing that so many people are afraid to do, lean into their authentic self because of the opinions and fears of others, your neighbors, coworkers, family members, peers at work. It's hard. We want to go do the things we want to do, but sometimes societal definitions or societal opinions stops us from doing that. Yet I know for a fact a lot of you want to get out there in the world and do something radically different. Either leave corporate to go do something artistic, maybe leave something artistic that's been part of your family to go do something that's more blue collar. Yet we kind of sit back and allow the natural course of things to define our life. That is not my current guest on today's show. My friend Claudia Hanna, who it means so much to me, more than I could possibly express to you. Claudia is the host of If This Food Could Talk, which is a history show about food from across the world. And it's produced by American Public Television, so it's a nationally rated show. But she's way more than that. She is a big sister, a best friend to me. If you've heard me talk about my dual lifestyle between the United States and Cyprus, it was actually Claudia through a mutual friend who helped me make that happen because she and her husband split their time between Virginia and Cyprus and have built a family and a lifestyle that I truly, truly envied in a positive way. And she helped me build my own that continues to grow to this day, which I'm hoping to continue to solidify in the future. The beautiful thing about Claudia, just like all of us, she had a standard path too, going through college, getting her master's, getting into the corporate world, be it in finance or management consulting, but that wasn't her authentic self. And she realized it. And the difference between Claudia and other people is that she acted on it. So she has started multiple businesses, everything from running worldwide tours in Cyprus, Greece, Turkey, to now being the host of a nationally syndicated podcast. She was actually a radio host back in the day as well. And she has multiple other businesses. And I wanted to bring her on as a wonderful example of an immigrant kid. She's from Egypt. Her parents are Egyptian, who did not allow status quo to dictate her path. Rather, leaning into her authentic self, making sure that she was in rooms. Wait till you hear the story about Virginia Public Media. Making sure that she was in rooms with other people that could drive her life forward so she could empower them on whatever business goals or ventures that they wanted to do. That's the story of how she became a nationally syndicated host. It's just a wonderful story. She talked quite a bit about the 5 pillars that drive her: authentic Mediterranean diet, building beautiful family and friends, circles of them, her faith and spirituality, making good career choices early, and even from a woman perspective, beauty tips and truly feeling good about yourself. And I love that when someone has pillars for their own life and not just says it, but actually acts on it and designs and executes a lifestyle based on the principles they have for themselves. So the reason I want to bring her on, one, she has impacted my life so much. And two, what a wonderful example of a human and a woman and a matriarch of a family who did not sit back and just allow life to drive her. She's driving life. This is a good one. I hope you enjoy it. Please send me some feedback, Maurice at trylifeon.com. I will always respond, but please enjoy this wide-reaching conversation with my amazingly good friend and sister, Claudia Hanna, who has dramatically impacted my life in a way where even me, I got a little bit emotional on the show because how she's impacted my future. I hope she impacts yours as well. Have a good listen. Claudia Hanna. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. I'm shocked, actually.
Are you?
I'm very shocked. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
not shocked in a bad way, but because you were coming, and I did all the intros before this stuff, so everybody
yeah.
already knows who you are, but because you were coming, I started like deep diving my friend Claudia Hanna. And
No.
I found out way more things about you that I had no idea about at
I don't know if
all.
I don't know if I want you to share this right now.
Like,
Not
well,
sure where you're going with all this.
it won't be too personal, but you are to me, and I said it in the intro, but you are to me like the perfect expert, accidental, maybe lifestyle design human woman.
Totally
Amazing.
by accident. But yeah, thank you.
And but the fact that you stayed on it. So the thing that I was joking about was I didn't know that you were a TV show, excuse me, a radio host in Cyprus for 4 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did that
The
start?
morning show with Claudia, baby. It
Oh
was
my
funny.
God. All
It
right.
was that was quite by accident. But yeah,
Okay.
my kids are super they were like embarrassed but because I would take them into school, drop them off and go to the station.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids were like, I heard your mom on the radio this morning. And they're like, they didn't want to admit it was cool, but it was kind of cool for them. I think
That's
now that they're
crazy.
older, they're like, it's cool, mom. But yeah, at the time.
But that's not something you were headed to do, right? That's not something right out of college. You were like, you know what? I'm gonna go be a radio host
In a foreign country.
in a
Absolutely not.
foreign country. Yeah. Okay, so
No,
let's we
not
have
the
we
grand
have to
plans.
we have to start there because people know that you are my reason, motivation, and connection to Cyprus and to Mediterranean life. We went to school together, but didn't know each other at school, and now you're doing all these amazing things around the world in the U.S., in the Mediterranean. If you're going to Turkey, what have you? What is the journey from University of Virginia to where you are now, which is a tough
So
one.
yeah, that's going back 25
Loaded.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a child of immigrants, Maurice, and I think that
Mhm.
that's kind of important to state up front. My parents came to the States in the 60s, and it was a time when, you wanted to assimilate into the American culture. I remember that. Like, remember your Egyptian roots, but don't,
Mhm.
but you're American, but don't forget your roots. That's kind of told to us over and over again. And then make sure that you are financially independent and stable. Those are kind of the two words that were or themes that I recall from my
Mhm.
childhood, as well as being
Mhm.
really in a very well, adapted, loving family. I'm very fortunate about that. So I went to college studying foreign affairs and economics. And my first job out of college was at a financial institution in New York. And I didn't love it. I didn't love it. And I ended up switching within 6 months, which is terrible to admit because I have a daughter in college now. So I'm kind of like, oh, don't do this, Ella.
Mhm.
Um, but I ended up switching my job because I landed with a job at MTV in Times Square, which
Oh,
was, it was kind of hard to say no to that because
absolutely.
money was on par. And it was working at MTV where I had free concerts and free food and, free drinks. And it was just a fun kind of lifestyle.
Mhm.
So I did that for a few years, and my parents kept saying, Claudia, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to go get insurance? When are you going to go get like all these things? Because I didn't. I was working for an hourly wage at MTV, and
What was the gig? So I think you studied economics at
I
UVA.
did. I
Yeah.
did.
Then you
It
financial
wasn't economics.
institution.
It
Yeah, yeah, well,
was
okay. The financial institution makes sense, but what were
yeah,
you actually doing at MTV?
something called corporate standards,
Standards.
which
Okay.
corporate standards is the term. I mean, my job was literally like typing in what my manager told me to type in.
Yeah,
But of course, because you're at that level. But the corporate standards, I don't know if you remember Beavis and Butthead,
I do.
Maurice.
I
Do you
do.
remember Beavis?
Of
Okay.
course.
So
Of course.
yeah, so Beavis and Butthead was part of Viacom.
Hmm.
And back in the, I want to say 80s or 90s, whenever that show was on, for anybody listening out there, go check out Beavis and Butthead. It
Yeah.
just kind of defined a little bit of our childhood. But one of them, Beavis and or Butthead, decided to burn down, like to set their Christmas tree on fire on an episode. This is a cartoon. It's completely animated.
Yeah.
So somebody really in real life in America did the same thing and ended up, I don't think anyone died, thankfully, in this
Oh
fire,
man. Oh
but
man.
their house burned down and then this family sued Viacom. And from that, Viacom decided to start a department called corporate standards. So it
Oh.
wasn't really censorship, but it was
Yeah.
almost like censorship. We're like, what do we define as our standards? If there was terminology in a video before it went on air or on a
Mhm.
television show that showed some nudity, had a curse word, something along those lines. What were Viacom's and MTV's standards? And so we had to make sure that they passed through our department before they were cleared for air. That
Hmm.
was the job. Anyway, I did that for a number of years before I went on
Nice.
to, yeah, I went on to grad school. My parents were like, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to grow up? Are you going to actually get a job that gives you insurance? Are you going to live on our insurance forever? Mind you, I've got the immigrant parents still.
Right, right,
So
right.
I, right. So I went to get my MBA in finance, back in finance at Emory University.
Hmm.
And I studied that, and it was great. I worked in consulting and in corporate finance for a number of years. Got married while I was down in Atlanta, while we were living in Atlanta. My husband, whom you know, Maurice, and
I do.
yeah. So I met my husband while I was at college, but the summer between my third and fourth years, landed a summer internship in Cyprus. And that summer really changed my life. And I keep telling, I have college interns now that work for me. And I
Yeah.
always tell them, don't say no. Take all the opportunities you can while you're young. Try new experiences. You don't know where they're going to take you.
Hmm.
Um, so I spent the summer in Cyprus and I met a guy who thought I was cute, thought he was cute. And I was like, call me when you get to America.
Right.
21-year-old Claudia, call me when you get here.
Glad you
And he did.
did.
He was a Fulbright scholar. So yeah, he was getting his PhD, master's and then PhD in finance.
Hmm. Hmm.
And anyway, I met him down in after my little stint at MTV in New York went through, I ended up going to grad school in Atlanta at Emory University. So we're finally in the same town. We ended up getting married. We worked the corporate grind for a number of years, I think about four or so. And then we decided to start a family.
Nice.
And yeah, then we had Ella and shortly thereafter, Benjamin.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, I hate this damn job. I didn't want to stick my kids in daycare. I understand it's a reality for a lot of people, but I
Yeah,
just didn't
yeah.
enjoy the work that I was doing. I didn't want to stick the kids in daycare. It didn't feel right. It didn't
Did
feel like my authentic self.
Was that you briefly said that that summer changed you. I don't know exactly what you were doing in Cyprus at the time when you were 21, but was that partially a function of your exposure to that region, that way of life, the Mediterranean way
Absolutely.
of life? And then
Absolutely.
how did that form your mindset when you got to, I guess, grad school in Atlanta?
Um, so that summer I was working at an import-export firm that it was an internship. It was only for a few months. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I realized that not that we'd been lied to by any means in the States growing up, just like work really hard and, when you retire at 65, 67, you'll be fine. And, it didn't feel like that's how people were living out there. There was
Mm-hmm.
more of a balance in they're working, they are heading to the beach,
Yep.
they are spending time with family, they're spending
Yep.
time with friends. It didn't seem like go work for 40 years and then enjoy your life
And then enjoy your life. Yeah, you
and then
felt
enjoy
it.
your life. And it opened my eyes. And the food was so, natural and less processed. And I just felt good. I felt good. I felt the sun on my face. I felt the sun on my body. Was eating well. I was sleeping better than I probably had been. Fresh
Mm-hmm.
salt air, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also being probably in your 20s, that helps.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. But I feel
Um,
like people who are travelers, maybe not necessarily tourists, but people who are travelers have that level of experience where they
yeah,
kind of equate the lifestyle that they are experiencing back to the lifestyle that they have in their home place, and then something fundamentally shifts under their feet, and their life starts to change. At least mine did, for sure.
absolutely. I obviously traveled plenty
Yeah,
before that, but this was the first time I'd spent 2.5 months in one location.
it
So
was
I was no
nice.
longer a traveler, a tourist. I was
Yep,
meeting
you were
locals and
living.
living with locals. Absolutely. And it was eye-opening for me. Um, as I said, I just thought it was much more holistic and it fit me. It just fit my
Yep.
lifestyle. People were genuinely open and warm and generous. And it could have been a function of luck, but I've been now in Cyprus. So I ended up marrying the cute guy I met on the beach. That was
Yep.
many years ago.
Yep.
And as Maurice knows, we split our time between Cyprus and the States. We have businesses on both continents.
Yeah.
And it is not just a matter of pure luck that I ran into nice people in my 20s. I honestly think the culture is warm and more inviting.
Yep.
And I don't know, there's probably a whole lot of reasons that we can get into why there might be a little bit of a difference here. I think everyone's just so busy in this culture to take
I think
time for one another, but I think it's important.
I think that's one of the main reasons. But even when people feel that, like in a warm culture, the way that you felt it, they don't necessarily have the, let's say, mindset, courage, wherewithal to break free from it. It doesn't sound like when you got back to, well, I kind of know the story, but when you got back to Atlanta, you didn't go back into the typical US workforce, or did you? When you got back to it, or when you got out of grad school, I should say.
When I
Like
got
where
out of grad school, I did. I
you
worked
did go back.
yeah, I worked in consulting, management consulting for a few years
You did. You did.
and
Okay.
finance. Hmm.
Okay. So how do you
Then I
jump
had
out?
kids. Then I had
Then you
kids.
had kids. Yeah. So how do you jump out? Because I most of the people who listen to Try Life On are trying to figure out a way to design their life differently. They're looking for the courage to do it, the mindset to do it, examples to do it like you, which is exactly why I wanted you to come on.
Yeah.
How do you start shifting your lifestyle and getting the courage to do it?
So I have to say, one of the things, so what I've got a brand, a blog, a Live Like a Goddess, where I talk about my 5 pillars for goddess living. And excuse me for being a little cheesy about it, but we stay on par and stay
Yeah.
like branded with it. But my first one is an authentic Mediterranean diet. My second pillar for goddess living and is focus on family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is faith and spirituality, which is a hard one for us to talk about in the West, but it
Mm-hmm.
means kind of whatever you want it to mean, that something is bigger and stronger than you just on your own. You can't control every facet of your life.
Yeah.
The fourth pillar, which is where I want to lead our discussion, is career decisions for women at a younger age, better career choices for women at a younger age. And then the fifth pillar for goddess living, which is kind of fun, is like beauty tips and tricks passed on from grandmother to mother. So a
Yeah.
lot of people want to hear about the Mediterranean diet, and that is what I end up teaching people how to do and how to have an authentic Mediterranean diet. But where I get stuck the most, and then when I'm able to explain it, especially to younger women out there listening, and men, of course, is the better career choices at a younger age. I think it's really important to learn in your 20s as much as you can. And my suggestion has always been try to pick up a technical skill. And when I say technical, I don't necessarily mean go be an engineer. You're welcome to be if that's what you like. I'm talking even like a nail technician. I'm
Yep.
thinking like, what is your get good at something, guys?
Mm-hmm.
That was probably a mistake I made early on in my career. I was just a jack in the box or general, whatever. I Jack the box just got a general jack
Jack,
person.
Jack of all trades kind of person.
Thank you.
Jack of all
This is the
trades.
problem with having like
Yeah.
immigrant parents. I swear to God, like there's some idioms that I just never picked up. But I'm like a jack. I'm a jack of the box. No, I'm not a jack of the box guy. But I am a jack of all trades. At least I was early on. So kind of
Yeah.
get good at something is my first suggestion. Um, the get a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
That's another big one for me. Get a mentor kind of early on.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to you earlier, I have some college interns and I mentor them. And I think it's important to pass down the knowledge that I've gained over the years. And I have mentors myself,
Yep.
and they've been instrumental to me in helping me with my career or helping me with my businesses. So don't be shy. Get out there, get out of your little circle and ask for help. There are people out there who want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that you're going to talk about passive income, but one of the things that's important for me, so it's an
Yeah.
interesting statistic, Maurice. Right now, women are graduating from college at about the same rate as men. You couldn't have said that a generation ago, but there's about
Right.
52% of graduates are females. When you get into the master's degree and PhD, so uh, for education, it does drop a bit. I think there's 70% of men who get master's degree versus women. So
Yeah.
there is a bit of a drop off. But where it really changes things is the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
It's the number of entrepreneurs, the number of new companies that are started by women are only about 10 to 11% versus 90%. There is a huge staggering difference.
Wow.
And I've always tried to figure out why. I've got daughters as well as a son, and I do think that there might be some inherent kind of like risk aversion. perhaps with
Mhm.
males, females, perhaps, I don't know. But the numbers are there for a reason. So my suggestion, I love entrepreneurial work. I don't think it's necessarily for all men and women out there. I do think it's important for you to find your trade and set your amount. What is your time worth?
Yep.
What is Claudia's time
I
worth? Am I
agree.
worth $20 an hour? Am I worth $100 an hour? Or am I worth $1,000 an hour? What is my time worth? And if you can figure it out because you've built a skill that some other people have not built that skill over, you can demand a higher rate. And when you have that higher rate, you can work less hours for the same amount of money, and then you can devote it to those other glorious pillars I was talking about, an authentic
Yep.
Mediterranean diet, beauty tips and tricks, more time with your family and friends, and faith and spirituality. But you got to have some money. And I'm not, and I, and that is important for me for women to hear out there.
Yeah,
So learn
and
in your 20s and take some risks in your 30s is my basic.
even in your 40s. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Beyond.
I think even now, where you and I are in life, we can take even more risks because there is this economy out there, or you can create your own economy, I should say, through social media or through being online, so you can live anywhere in the world that you want to live.
Totally.
I was kind of fascinated when I got out of management consulting 2 years ago, and I started posting on LinkedIn, as you know,
Hmm.
and just organically personal brand started to develop, and I didn't even realize it. And then what happened was I just took my consulting skills, created a small business. This Try Life On thing popped up, and now I do coaching for people. But that facilitates kind of the lifestyle that you have, right? Where you're between two different countries.
Hmm.
Because of you, I'm kind of between two different countries
Yeah, you
now.
are.
I love the I'm aware of the five pillars of living like a goddess. But
As a young lady.
the career choice one is issue. You're not going to remember this, but when I first talked with you, you told me, and hopefully this reminds you, but you told me that it was a little bit tough because you when you looked around from time to time, you would see peers or neighbors, coworkers, whatever you want to call it, and they were squarely in the corporate world or
Hmm.
squarely in the mom world or
Hmm.
maybe squarely in the solo business world, but you do so much. There's not a cookie cutter
Right.
Claudia out there, right? Is that is that still a challenge? Do you remember having that challenge of like, look, the herd is going left, but I
Yeah.
tend to go right? And even
Mm.
with your work for American Public Television now, it's just different, which I love the show, by the way. I've
Thank
gone
you.
through 4 episodes now, but it's just
Thank you.
different. How is that for you? Because that's what other people are struggling with is watching, especially women, I would
Hmm.
assume, but watching their peers all going in a particular direction and you being unique to yourself.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. I don't remember telling you that, but it rings true.
Yep.
So and it still kind of happens. I got my MBA from a really good school, and
Yep.
so therefore I have a lot of peers who've now we're all in our 40s and beyond. They've they've done quite well for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
in the corporate world, whether they're senior vice president or chief operating officer or whatever in Fortune 500 companies and whatnot. And so part of you goes, I could have done that. Why didn't I
Yeah.
do that? Like
Yeah.
part of me still does that. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's that FOMO middle child kind of syndrome. I have no idea,
Yeah.
but it's real and I accept it. And then I try so there's a couple things I do to kind of talk myself off that ledge is I think like Claudia, you've
Mm-hmm.
been in you remember those cubicles. Those are not authentic to you. I'm not saying they're not authentic to everybody, but they weren't authentic to me. I
Mm-hmm.
remember this time. So what I have to do is surround myself with like-minded individuals. And that's why I'm so grateful, Maurice, that you entered my world. And because I think that you and and there's a lot of people out there who are listening and who are participating in their own way, trying to find multiple streams of income
Yep.
that have nothing to do with a singular paycheck from a large or middle-sized company. They're trying to figure out there must be another way. And so it's surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many ways to do that now, right? Like get online, you can go on a meetup in person, you can, just there are groups, LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups, and it's just so it's when you're around that and that energy feels right and they're speaking your same language, you feel it. It resonates.
Yep.
And you got to listen to yourself. You got to listen
Totally.
to yourself. You got to trust that it's going to be fine. You just do the steps, have your mentor, find your supplemental income, set that hourly, like get yourself a skill set that you can set your wage at. Like that's really important. So you feel like you've got that egg, that
Hmm.
egg, and then you can kind of grow from there. Build your team, build your personal entourage, and constantly lean on them. I suggest in the beginning, I joined a group, me and some friends, we were all setting on our different paths. One was writing a book. One was starting a non-for-profit in Africa. I was starting my company. I had also, there was another, there, we all had different paths that we were all trying to, but we would meet weekly and
Yeah.
we were in different parts of the world.
Hmm.
And I think having someone to be held accountable to and you're not only your help, you were their benchmark as well. And yeah, I think it really helped. We met for a solid year every single week.
That's right.
And I've been in a couple groups like that. So I highly recommend them.
Yeah, it's
Part one.
finding a tribe. And as I'm sitting here and most of the people who listen know my story, I can tell you, anytime I talk with you and your husband, who obviously is a very good friend of mine, I feel better. I
Oh,
feel like there's a bit of emotion coming up out of me right now. I feel better because I thought that I was solo in my desire to create this unique lifestyle for myself and my kids and my family of being in between the US and going somewhere else. When I looked around, I just couldn't find people like me. Maybe I wasn't looking hard enough. That might be the case, but when I looked around, I couldn't find people like me who were more interested in creating unique experiences and beautiful relationships than they were going after partner at my firm or going after chief of police at my police department. And
mhm.
then I found you guys. How long did it take for me to show up in Cyprus? How long? Well, I think it took me a week to get
Couple
you on
weeks.
Zoom,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And then I found
I
out
was
you
like,
guys lived in Cyprus, and
I
I
think this guy's
flew over.
actually coming.
Yeah,
I was
I
like, I'm
did.
not really sure because I'm really open. Like, yeah, come visit. We're friends through our friend. We have a mutual friend, Melissa, who I'm
Yeah.
gonna go see, by the way, tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi,
So,
Melissa.
yeah, Melissa, I'll tell you,
It's
say hi.
it's nice. It totally underscores the point of when you get around like-minded people, or you get
Yeah.
around someone who is doing something that you want to do. I call that finding a who versus thinking about the what forever. It's how fast things can just move forward. I made you think about that one a little bit, didn't I?
Yeah. Finding the
Yeah.
who, huh?
Finding the
Say that.
who, finding the who versus thinking about the what forever.
Ooh,
You've already
damn,
done
that's
it.
deep.
Your husband's already done what I want to do in real estate and things of that nature, right? So it's like, no, it's there are people out there who you can add value to their lives, and it
So you know
really
what I want to
moves
say?
things
I find
forward.
it interesting. I'm glad. I'm really
Yeah.
glad that I mean, I feel like your family, honestly,
You are
Maurice.
my
I've
family,
said
period.
that exactly. And I'm really glad that we were able to do that, to provide you that comfort and have to provide one another that comfort. I think it's interesting.
Mm.
So I've been on and off the island of Cyprus for the better part of 25 years now. And um we're very open. Like I love my connections in America. I love my connections, and I'm a connections person. I want to be connected to people. If you have good name, like good
Yeah.
juju. If you're bad
Yeah,
juju,
yeah,
get
yeah.
away from
No
me. Like
doubt.
I'm not interested. But what's interesting, I have opened my home many a times in Cyprus, and the overwhelming response is, I want this lifestyle.
Yeah.
I see you there. I'm on Zoom. Like I want what you're doing, Claudia. And so the fact that you didn't find anyone, I think, is interesting. That's your experience. My experience is I'm finding a lot of people who want it and can see it and whatever, but they're just too scared to make that jump.
Yes.
And I think that's what the difference is between you and them. And well, like kudos to you. You've taken the steps into slowly getting, and actually not so slowly in a way, but you had been building it for years. In all
I
fairness, I don't want
yeah,
to just, I jumped into your life only in the last 3 years or so.
yeah.
But you've been building up. building
Well,
it a
but
little bit.
I found the area, but when I found you guys, the natural gravity of you guys pulled me to the island, and not only pulled me to the island, but pulled me to the lifestyle, and even pulled me to the the concept of building more family later and things of that nature, and then having that slower lifestyle. I was aware of it, but to see it modeled in front of me is a totally was a totally different thing. So I just wanted to call that out because
Thank you.
I say it all the time. If you want to go be a solopreneur and do something online, find the person who's done it. If you want to be on TV, or I have a coaching student who wanted to be a voiceover actor. So we found someone randomly, one of Jalen's high school classmates' dads is a famous voiceover artist
What?
in
Oh,
my network. So I
that's
connected a
great.
coaching student to him, and now he's doing voiceover work. You gotta find people. Um, you are now, to shift gears, you are now the host of a nationally produced PBS show. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how do you, how does that even happen? And the interesting thing about your show, and I'll let you introduce it, but the interesting thing about your show, it is squarely in what I believe is in your heart relative to food and relative to Mediterranean culture, depending on if you're on that topic in the show.
Right.
But talk a little bit about your journey towards that show, because that's a way of you trying life on the way you want to do it.
Yeah, I am still buzzing. I am still so
You
excited.
might,
So
it's good. It's so good.
we're in season one. We're in production. So the show is
Yeah.
called If This Food Could Talk, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a history show for everyone who eats. That's how we talk about it. It's a food history show. It is being produced by American Public Television. I am the show host and one of the EPs. We've got producers that are so much smarter than me. I have to be honest. I'm like, I am in awe of how they can do research, and so basically we pitch show ideas. It's a season one is 10 episodes. We are in the middle of season one. Actually, we're time this show comes out like towards the end of season one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we we find interesting guests that have a unique backstory about a
Mm-hmm.
show topic we're interested in. So the first episode was America's love of ice cream. And where did the ice cream come from? I'll talk to you. It's a Chinese emperor, like back then. And then how did it get onto our plates here in the States? And so,
Really? Was it a
yeah,
Chinese emperor that did that?
it started all the way back in
Oh, it
ancient
started
China.
with a Chinese
Absolutely.
emperor. Okay, didn't know that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It was early on in the episode. So it's cool because we get to do a lot of we dig deep and do some research. We chat with food historians, we chat with chefs. Um, the most recent episode was with legendary Jacques Pepin. I don't know if
Mm,
anybody out there remembers him. I certainly did, and I was gushing throughout this entire interview. Jacques Pepin was on PBS with Julia Child for 30 years. The man is 87 years old and is
wow.
still, he is an inspiration. He came to the United States as a chef, in his 20s. And after he got into a massive car accident in his 40s, they didn't think he was going to survive. He had to leave the chefing world. And that's when he
Hmm.
started to teach professional chefs. And that's when he started to teach not only professional chefs, but home chefs. And that's when his career in PBS took off. And he cooked with Julia Child for 30 years. So
Nice.
he's still in his 80s. He's publishing cookbooks left and right, and he has a foundation. And I get to spend an hour chatting with him about his story.
Wow.
And then we
Wow.
get to cook together. So each of our episodes is about a food item like pizza or ice cream or bison. We have an episode coming up on best
Hmm.
bison. And then I
Olive
teach you
oil.
how to make, yep, an olive oil.
My favorite one so far.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a
Hmm.
very personal one for me. I talk about how to like pick and choose and store olive oil and
Yeah.
cook with it. And so then it's associated with a robust website that has a lot of recipes. So you get to kind of cook with me as well, which I think is the fun part of the show.
Hmm.
So how did it happen? Was
Yeah,
that kind of the
that's the
question?
curious thing.
That's the
Yes,
question.
because
Yeah.
it
So
lends right to your personality and right to where such a big part of your life in terms of food.
yeah. So a little dumb luck, probably. And that's the truth. So I teach Mediterranean cooking classes at a couple universities in Virginia, and I lead these culinary tours overseas. And I realized I can only teach like 20 people at a time in a classroom. And I can only take about 20 people to Cyprus, to Greece, to Turkey, to, wherever I've been taking them. Those are the three countries usually, but I'm branching out.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you reach a bigger population? Because there's so many people. I mean, my classes are oversold. I can't fit them all in, and I'm only one person. So how do you get more people involved? So I actually pitched a show, this food podcast, to Virginia Public Media. So here in Richmond,
Oh.
Virginia. And we produced a pilot and it was fine, but we couldn't get the terms. I think we just couldn't get it to work out, the terms for a full season.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't sure exactly what they wanted to do regarding a new podcast. And the consultant who was working on that show is based in California. And he remembered me. He's based in San Francisco. In fact, I got a call with Nate a little bit later on today.
Mm-hmm.
He has kind of taken me under his wing. He is one of my mentors. And he
Nice.
said, he sent me an email last September, so about a year ago, and said, "Hey, Claudia, did you ever sell that show? I think I got a buyer for you." That's literally how it happened. And he brought me to, so he had moved on to a new client, American Public Television in Boston. They're huge. They're the leading syndicates for PBS,
Yep.
and they own Create Television. They bring to you the Jacques Pepin, Julia Child, Rick Steves,
Yeah.
Samantha Brown, Diane Cuchillas. They bring to you all these shows that a lot of us might be a little bit more familiar with, and they were looking to enter the podcasting world, and we're their first original show of all.
Oh, I see.
They're usually a syndicate, but they're creating a show from the ground up. And so they took a big risk as well on me by producing the show. And it's been such a fun ride. I'm telling you, this is the most fun I've had work-wise in ages. Because I get to use a different side of my brain. Like I don't
Yeah.
have to think about spreadsheets. I'm just finding cool clients or cool people to talk about. And then somebody does the booking. We come up with the questions, we put together a story, and then I get to cook and chat with kind of these chefs and historians, which is it's fun. It's
I love
fun.
it, and their risk paid off because I can tell your enthusiasm when I hear you on it. Just because I know
Thank you.
I've seen your voice angry, I've seen your voice mellow, I've seen your voice happy because I'm like, nah,
Have you
she's
seen the
really
mom
into it.
voice?
Yeah, but
Thanks.
for let me take one step back. You
Yeah,
said that you came up with this concept and you pitched it to Virginia Public Media. How did you know? I'm just getting on the business side just for 1 second. How did you know what to do? How did you know to bring it to Virginia Public Media, or how did you know to hire a consultant? I'm sure there's people out there who want to start
sure,
their own. I mean, I think I started a podcast. I don't think it was as calculated as what you did. So I want to pick your brain a little bit on how you
sure.
even get to that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a skill, right? I talked to you
Mm.
about my skills. I teach people how to eat well,
Yep.
really well,
Yeah.
authentic Mediterranean diet. So I was like, okay, I can only teach 20 people at a time. How do I get it larger? So I went over to the UVA. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I went to the
Mm-hmm.
University of Virginia's podcasting studio and said, hey guys, I kind of want to start a podcast, but I really don't know what I'm doing here. They're like, it's go to your local community radio station. How about that? So that was my first step. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started to do some really awful like podcasts by myself, just kind of throwing stuff out there, just playing. Nobody's really listening, but they were helping me. It was people who were like, that's their job is to get community members to get their voice. And I became part of an email distribution list that was for Virginia podcasters. And so once a month, they would do a happy hour from 5 to 7 because podcasting, as you know, Maurice, can be a very solopreneur, right?
For
You're in
sure.
a studio by yourself, coming up with ideas, unless you're interviewing somebody, and then you have two people in a studio, and that's about it. So you
Mm-hmm.
can feel kind of lonely. So
Mm-hmm.
they would do these happy hours. And one of the happy hours was like, hey guys, VPM, Virginia Public Media, is looking to start a podcast studio. They want to hear your pitches. Come to this happy hour.
Wow.
So I went to that happy hour and I started there was about 25 of us or 30 of us in a room. Everybody gave a 2-minute speech. Everybody's was about, because it's the University of Virginia. So it was more about politics and strategy and history. And I was like, I just do food for kids, like cooking podcasts for, I mean, like I was like really feeling stupid. That was the one they were interested in because it was informational and infomatic. And they just, and then the woman who helped me, so who was coming to listen to the pitches,
Mm-hmm.
get this, Maurice, you're going to love this because you know how I believe like things are connected in the out there.
I do.
Her mom is married to a Cypriot. I swear to God. So I was like
So it just
freaking. So
all
she,
tied in. You're like, yep,
I
the
know, it was
universe is
like, and so
working in
she
my
was
favor.
like, come here, talk to me about your show. And I was like, so we started talking about halloumi and we started talking about zivania and we started talking about comandaria because I'm the like
Of course
rakia
you
and
did.
all this kind of stuff. And she was like, I miss that stuff. And I was like, I know. She's like, I love Cyprus. I was like, I do too. We still go there. And so she took me under her wing and said, I'll tell you how to like pitch it. So because
Yeah.
she knew what they were looking for. Because I didn't know what the budget would look like. I didn't know. I said I could come up with stories because I had my skills. I knew what the show would be about. When I presented it to Virginia Public Media, they were like, this is a great idea.
Wow.
So there
Just
you go.
like that. You know,
Just
you just demonstrated the concept. It's going to be my newsletter this week. I might even bring your
oh,
name up in it.
oh,
People, the plot twist that people are looking for in their lives in the last 2.5 months of 2023 is not sitting on the couch. They got to get up. They got to go seek opportunity. And
yep,
when there is opportunity, aka a happy hour where some
yep,
media company might be, you got to put
sure.
yourself in the hallway and get
Yep,
out there, go try life on or what have you. And that's
yep.
exactly what you did. So that
That's exactly right.
but the show sold, no, the show didn't sell that day. It was
No.
to Virginia Public Media or it was to
Yes. It
APT?
was Virginia Public Media. This is a couple years ago. It was right in like right at the start, like at COVID time, kind of at the time when you
COVID
and I
time.
met. So it's
Yeah.
about 2020. It
Wow.
was several years ago. It did took some time, but but I agree with you 100%. If something's not working for you guys, do something different.
Yep.
Don't expect things differently. Like you got to do something different. Get out of your comfort zone. Go join new groups. Go meet new people. Get some new energy in your life. It will take you somewhere. I'm a big fan of not treading water, but swimming in it to a destination. That's
Yep.
what I keep saying. Like, don't tread water. Keep swim to that's really tiring. But swimming towards a point, you can pivot later, but swim towards a point.
Swim
Treading is
towards the
just going to
point. You got
exhaust you.
to you have to do it. And actually, relative to some media projects I'm doing, I'm just taking a chance and going up to New York this week at the end of
Oh,
the week
great.
just to meet some people. And it's not that I have a set agenda. It's just that I will be in a room with right people. If
That's it.
one of those right people thinks I'm right for them, because it's not all about me, it's about them and what we can
Sure.
provide them to, then maybe something will pop off about it.
And it might plant a seed. So not right now, but
Yes,
later. And
right.
that's what happened with me.
That's what happened. Yeah, the time. So I just
Timing.
want to key in on that. The time. So this is 3 years ago. So
Hmm.
your stint on American public television, or for the show, if this food could talk, March it started.
Yeah, March of this year, officially started and we launched our first episode August 24th.
I
And
love
we're
it.
still in season one. So it's all still new.
Yeah,
But
you
it began with me saying I needed to reach more people than the 20 persons in my classroom. I need to do something different. And
yeah.
then I got into a different room, literally a station, local station, and they hooked me up with teaching me the fundamentals
Hmm.
of podcasting. And then they hooked me up with, the happy hours and meeting other people. And that's just that's how it worked out for me.
You wanted to reach more people, so you had a why. I always tell people you got to
Yeah.
have a why behind all this stuff because it gets involved, and without a why, if you're just chasing money, the money will run at some point.
No, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not about that.
It's not
Um,
about the money. For me, it's
listen,
always about connection.
yes, and you're very good at it too. So, what do you think? Just as we're wrapping up, what do you think? What's next? So, I know you have a varied family and business life for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is the APT show going to be the focus of life for a while, or do you have other projects going on as well?
I do have other projects going on as well. But APT, my new podcast, If This Food Could Talk, is is my main focus right now. I need to ride this. I'm so excited
Yeah.
about it. And there's a lot of materials. We're moving into season two. The doors it opens by the people I'm meeting through
Hmm.
this is just incredible. And I don't think I could have landed in a nicer group of people.
That's
So
awesome.
like they're just kind humans who want to create good shows that are fun and informative. They're smart, they're witty, and they're very respectful. I lucked out. And so I'm gonna ride it as much as I can,
I don't know if
as
you
much as they'll
lucked
have
out as
me.
much as you put yourself in the right place at the right time and you jumped and you went after it. And by the way, I still need to introduce you to my buddy Maher, who runs that winery in
Oh
northern
yeah.
Lebanon. That would be
Yes.
an excellent topic for your show. Just how someone even had the gall to do something like that, reclaim his father's land, start a
Nice.
biodiverse wine. That might be another thing
I
for
would
you.
love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
So last
We're
question of
doing
the
an
show.
episode on wine this season.
Are
I'm
you
going to
really?
actually head into the studio a little bit later on today. It's about the wine industry in California and the Catholic Church during Prohibition and some bootlegging freaks. That's
Well,
all I'm going to say.
yeah. Scandals on the APT
Yeah,
podcast.
I know, right?
I love it. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
Last question on the show is always the following.
Mm.
Remember, there are most of the people who listen to the show or track the newsletter are all people who are trying to shift their lifestyle in some way. They are trying to get out there to try life on in whatever way that they want to. In that respect, what would be the one piece of advice you would give? I mean, you've given a lot already, but what would be one piece of advice that really pops to the top of your mind for someone who wants to shift the dynamic of what they do on a day-to-day basis?
Get yourself in a new room. If you want to
There
change
it
something
is.
up, get yourself in a new room. That really is where I think it matters. You need some new energy.
100%.
Somebody, something will change you and you will gravitate towards it. Don't tread water. Go swim towards a destination. Pick a point and go.
Boom.
Is that too hard? Is it too
No,
difficult?
you were that
Okay.
person for me. From a
Oh,
lifestyle perspective, right? You and your
aw,
family was that for me. No, that
yeah.
wasn't too difficult. People need to do it. They just have a fear factor of
I
getting
know.
getting
I
that
know.
done. Yeah.
Like, I keep telling my kids this. There are a lot of nice people in this world. There
Yeah.
really are. There can be some assholes. Sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to curse on your show.
No, it's fine.
But there are more nice people in the world than bad. You go ask for help, you put yourself out there, someone will say yes, and they will help. People are nice. I really
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah. And you are one heck of an example of it, Claudia Hanna. And I heard this is the first time I ever heard you refer to yourself as Claudia Hanna. I've
That's
never heard
right.
that before, actually. Is Hannah your middle name or is it a double first name?
It is my maiden name.
Oh, it's your maiden.
Yeah, so
Ah,
I was
okay.
Claudia Hanna in college. We would have, if we'd known each other, you would have known me as that name. And my married name is Vaisel, which is
Yep.
a bear to say in English.
Yes, it is.
So I just go by my maiden name for work purposes.
Well, it works. It
Thank
works.
you.
And
Thank you.
you are the exact prototype for getting yourself in a room, doing amazing stuff. I hope people visit your podcast. I want to thank you for coming on my podcast and for being a motivation to me. And hopefully those projects we talked about will come to fruition. We'll get in more rooms together the next time.
That sounds great. Thank you,
Okay.
Maurice, for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate it. Hey guys, this is Maurice, host of the Try Life On podcast, and thank you for listening to another episode. I hope you are finding it useful in helping you design your own lifestyle that you don't need a vacation from. If that's the case, please consider dropping a review for me, whether in Apple, iTunes, or in Spotify. Drop a review, put some stars on it, give me some feedback on how I can make the podcast better, what information you are looking for. I am doing my best to get information to you on the Try Life On principles, the 5 freedoms, how to build lifestyle, travel hacking, all of it. And I want to do it for you. So please do a review for me. And until next time, my name is Maurice Philogene, and this is the Try Life On podcast. Peace.